Okay, it's load. So why don't we get started?
Sounds great.
My name is Brad. I'm a Concord resident. I work with the group ConcordCAN, Concord Climate Action Network, and we're really happy to co-host this event with the Sunrise Movement, represented by Lucy Whitelam. And it's just so great to have everybody here on a Saturday that you can make it. But this is the climate movement. This is the time, and it's a very exciting time. We can make a big difference. And that's all I'm going to say. And I want to pass it to Ben Stumpf, who teaches at Concord Academy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to do a quick intro for Lucy. Lucy is a junior at CA. She's about to be a senior, woohoo! And she's one of our environmental co-heads at CA and has run some events there, but she is also an active member of Sunrise Boston, which is what this talk is about. I hope you're here to learn something about that. This meeting is also, we thought we would make this meeting about networking, trying to connect people, particularly young people, to climate action. It feels like it's been a little bit I'm a little dormant during the pandemic, and it's still a massively important issue. And so thanks to Lucy, we're going to be helping to revive it a bit. And it's, as Brad said, it's co-sponsored by Sunrise and ConcordCAN. ConcordCAN wanted to support this work of Sunrise and help build the climate movement for youth as much as we can support it. But I think even more important, it's that we want to, as an adult, I've worked with a lot of young people, and I've learned to listen to them and step back. And I think that's something that has been very cool to watch, is to see Sunrise basically take the lead and drive this climate movement on their own. And we adults are just there to listen, to learn, and to support. I have a few logistical things I'm supposed to go over, which is, if you want to rename yourself with some affiliation, maybe your school, your town, or anything else you want to say about yourself, you can do a renaming with the little 3 dots over your name. And then second logistical thing is, we'll be recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can hide your video and maybe change your name. I think it doesn't come through in the recording anyway, but otherwise we'd love to see your faces, because really this is about connecting people, getting people to look at each other, talk to each other about climate action, and maybe join Sunrise if you want. So yeah, so I'm gonna pass it over to Lucy, and welcome to Lucy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ben, if you could share the slides, that would be amazing, and we'll get started.
Yep, let me do that for you. I'm gonna do that. I'm also gonna turn on the little video thing for you. So let me just set up the video settings for you, and you are good to go.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah, so hello everyone. Thank you for coming today. It really means a lot. I just wanted to preface by saying this is scheduled for an hour, but I don't think it will feel close to that time. And we will also be having a Q&A at the end. So if you want to start thinking about questions while you were listening, that would also be awesome. Yeah, but before we get started, I thought you should know a little bit about who I am. So as Ben said, I'm Lucy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently a junior at Concord Academy. And though climate work does fill a lot of my time, when I'm not doing climate work, I am biking around a lot of the trails in Concord. I went on a great bike ride this morning. I love volunteering at local farms, and of course, spending time with my 2 cats who are pictured in the slides, Otis and Steve. They're pretty great. And yeah. Also, before starting this, I wanted to do a quick land acknowledgement, because it is important to realize and acknowledge that we are occupying stolen native land, and it's very much the first step to only acknowledge it, but we should continue to learn about the people who were on this land before us and who continue to live here. And to help with this land acknowledgement, I'm borrowing a quote from a website called A Guide to Land Acknowledgements that says, "It is important to understand the longstanding history that has brought you to reside on the land, and to seek to understand your place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation." So I put on the slides that you can use the very handy website native-land.ca to find out whose land you're occupying, and if you feel so inclined, you can do so and share whose land you're on in the chat. I am personally on Pawtucket and Massachusetts land, which I imagine most of you are, calling from Concord as well. But definitely keep checking out those people and learning about them and figuring out ways you can help them out. Yeah, okay, to the meat of this presentation. What is Sunrise? Why are we here? So Sunrise, as described on their website, is a youth movement to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. We're building an army of young people to make climate change an urgent priority across America and end the corrupting influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics and elect leaders who stand up for the health and well-being of all people. Through my experience, I've discovered that that is more than true. Sunrise is a mass movement of inspired, passionate young people who care deeply about their future and the future of those around them. We are fighting for those who can't and for those who unfortunately will not. The Sunrise movement organizes by building personal connections like we are doing here and having conversations with the people around us, along with pushing for change and electing leaders who care about environmental justice just as much as we do. You certainly also cannot talk about Sunrise without talking about the Green New Deal, which is a 10-year plan introduced by Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey to mobilize every aspect of American society towards 100% clean and renewable energy, guarantee of a good job to all members of our society, a just transition for both workers and frontline communities, and create economic prosperity for all. The Sunrise movement is fighting to make the Green New Deal a reality, and I've got a 6-minute video to show you the possibilities of passing a Green New Deal. I watch this video quite often myself to remind what I'm fighting for and how the Green New Deal will help us get there.
The bullet train from New York to DC. It always brings me back to when I first started making this commute. In 2019, I was a freshman in the most diverse Congress in history. Up to that point, it was a critical time. I'll never forget the children in our community. They were so inspired to see this new class of politicians who reflected them, navigating the halls of power. It's often said, you can't be what you can't see. And for the first time, they saw themselves. I think there was something similar with the Green New Deal. We knew that we needed to save the planet and that we had all the technology to do it, but people were scared. They said it was too big, too fast, not practical. I think that's because they just couldn't picture it yet. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with how we got here. 1977, New York. A senior scientist named James Black made a presentation about how burning fossil fuels could eventually lead to global temperatures rising 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 2 years, one of the world's biggest supertankers was outfitted with a state-of-the-art lab to measure CO2 in the ocean, gathering more data about global warming. Guess who was doing all of this research? ExxonMobil, the oil and gas company. Oh yeah, Exxon knew this whole time, as did our politicians. 10 years later, James Hansen, NASA's top climate scientist, told Congress he was 99% certain that global warming was happening and caused by humans. That was 1988, the year before I was even born. So did Exxon listen to the science, including their own? Did they change business models, invest in renewables? No, the opposite. They knew and they doubled down. They and others spent millions setting up a network of lobby groups and think tanks to create doubt and denial about climate change. It was an effort designed to attack and dispute the very kind of science they themselves had been doing. And it worked. Politicians went to bat for fossil fuels, and these massive corporations kept digging and mining, drilling and fracking like there was no tomorrow. America became the biggest producer and consumer of oil in the world. Fossil fuel companies made hundreds of billions, while the public paid the lion's share to clean up their disasters. We lost a generation of time we'll never get back. Entire species will never get back. Natural wonders gone forever. And in 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed the place where my family was from, Puerto Rico. It was like a climate bomb. It took as many American lives as 9/11. And in the next year, when I was elected to Congress, the world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions in half, or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death. 12 years to change everything. How we got around, how we fed ourselves, how we made our stuff, how we lived and worked, everything. The only way to do it was to transform our economy, which we already knew was broken, since the vast majority of wealth was going to just a small handful of people, and most folks were falling further and further behind. It was a true turning point. Lots of people gave up. They said we were doomed. But some of us remembered that as a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War II. We knew from our history how to pull together to overcome impossible odds. And at the very least, we owed it to our children to try. The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched the decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet. It was the kind of swing for the fence ambition we needed. Finally, we were entertaining solutions on the scale of the crises we faced without leaving anyone behind. That included Medicare for All, the most popular social program in American history. We also introduced the federal jobs guarantee, a public option including dignified living wages for work. Funnily enough, the biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one all across the country. We needed more workers. That group of kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana. Her first job out of college was with AmeriCorps Climate, restoring wetlands and bayous in coastal Louisiana. Most of her friends were in her union, including some oil workers in transition. They took apart old pipelines and got to work planting mangroves with the same salary and benefits. Of course, when it came to healing the land, we had huge gaps in our knowledge. Luckily, Indigenous communities offered generational expertise to help guide the way. Ileana got restless, tried her hand as a solar plant engineer for a while, but eventually made her career in raising the next generation as part of the Universal Child Care Initiative. As it turns out, caring for others is valuable, low-carbon work, and we started paying real money to folks like teachers, domestic workers, and home health aides. Those were years of massive change, and not all of it was good. When Hurricane Sheldon hit southern Florida, parts of Miami went underwater for the last time. But as we battled the floods, fires, and droughts, we knew how lucky we were to have started acting when we did. And we didn't just change the infrastructure, we changed how we did things. We became a society that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all, we stopped being so scared of the future. We stopped being scared of each other, and we found our shared purpose. Ileana heard the call too, and in 2028, she ran for office in the first cycle of publicly funded election campaigns. And now she occupies the seat that I once held. I couldn't be more proud of her, a true child of the Green New Deal. When I think back to my first term in Congress, riding that old school Amtrak in 2019, all of this was still ahead of us. And the first big step was just closing our eyes and imagining it. We can be whatever we have the courage to see.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. I love that video. As I said, I watch it all the time. But now I just want to talk about a little how I got involved with climate activism and how my story in this work began. So I started my journey of being what I call a climate activist in progress the winter of my freshman year, which was 2018. A group of passionate students at my school were organizing to get the Green New Deal resolution signed in our town, which is Concord. It was my first real experience organizing, and it was incredible to understand the true power of my actions. I worked with other young people to canvass the local businesses, get peers to sign petitions, and present in front of the town board. And it did all pay off. The Green New Deal resolution was signed in Concord, and I was a part of that push for real change, which was very exciting. What with the whirlwind of school, I admittedly took a bit of a break until my schedule was magically cleared by the pandemic. I spent my spring and summer taking every online course and training to learn more about Sunrise. I met some incredible people, and I was more ready than ever to dive headfirst into this movement. I started a hub at my high school alongside of my peers in the summer, and we've continued to hold events at our school, such as a march on Patriots Day for the climate revolution and making Valentines for our governor to express our heartbreak over the climate crisis. In January of this year, I also joined Sunrise Boston. Which leads us to what am I doing now? So once I joined Sunrise Boston, I joined the Actions team, which is what a lot of people think of when they think of activism. We organize campaigns, protests, other events, and canvass politicians. After a little bit of being in the hub, I became more confident in my organizing skills. I was asked to co-lead a campaign, which in this case is a series of actions that build up to an end goal of a step towards positive change, focused on housing and food justice. And I agreed to work on it despite my minimal experience. With the help from a few other organizers, we laid out a campaign arc stretching across a few months that, to be quite honest, I was very proud of. It was the first tangible way that I saw my progress as an organizer from the slightly intimidated freshman sharing a petition with her classmates 2 years ago. It was difficult to truly get involved over Zoom, but I have never met a more welcoming group of people than in Sunrise. I joined more teams in the hub, such as a community team, which works within the hub to make sure everyone is still having fun while putting in the emotional and physical labor to fight climate change. I went to progressively more meetings and felt very comfortable in my position in Sunrise Boston. I made really incredible friends that I can truly not stress enough how much I learned from and am continuing to learn from. And they're all scattered across the Boston area, though there are many more scattered across the nation. I am also still co-leading the Sunrise Hub at my school, organizing more local actions. The most recent one was a march down through Old North Bridge on Patriots Day to create public awareness around the importance of a good jobs guarantee. And you can see a picture from that action on this slide. Now, this is where you come in. How do you get involved after seeing this presentation? The best way to join Sunrise is to attend a welcome call, hub meeting, phone bank, training, or another event in your community. Sunrise's website, simply sunrisemovement.org, has a handy dandy hub map to locate hubs and events, which are subsections that are divided geographically of the movement that you can join. And I think Ben is going to bring us to the website so we can take a little tour. So yes, when you come to the website, you see this very beautiful picture with the caption, "We're the Climate Revolution." And if you go up to the top with the various drop-down bars and go to our local hubs, which is, yeah, right there, you are taken to this map where you can put in your location and find a hub near you. And Ben is doing that right now. For example, Sunrise Boston. And every place on, like every hub on the map has a way of contacting them to get involved, which is very handy and a good resource. So yeah, and then also in this website, oh yeah, you can see the sign up link. And then after you sign up with that, you'll get like an email for a welcome call and stuff like that. Also on this website, if you go back to About Sunrise, I believe there's another page, or our campaigns, yeah, that has the current initiatives to create change, as they say. For example, the Good Jobs for All campaign, which is the one I'm working on. And you can also see the training programs, which I mentioned I did a bit of in the summer, which are all very good ways to get involved. So yeah, if you're around the Concord area, there are quite a few hubs available. And if you go to CA with me, you can of course join our hub. If you are interested in the larger scale hub, Sunrise Boston and most big city hubs are very solidified already in their structure and organizing. I've been very lucky to get the opportunity to lead a campaign because of the already established prominence of Sunrise Boston, Massachusetts, and how they are already known as an activist organization. The hub map on the website, as I said, has many ways to join, and you can also find them very easily on Instagram as well, if that is easier for you. And if you're interested in Sunrise Boston, I can also personally connect you to that. So you can reach out to me after this. Yes, okay. Perfect, now you're in, then what? Once you join the hub, many of them will have a few teams set up that help ensure that their hub is running smoothly and that everything is getting done. There are many options. I mentioned that I'm on the Boston Hub's action team, but there's also the communication team that works on social media and public appearance, the art team that designs beautiful and powerful art for actions, and even more teams for everything else, like the data team, the community team, etc. There are so many options, and truly there is something for everyone. Without each team, the hub would not be as powerful, and building people power is a critical part of this movement. Another wonderful thing is the opportunity to try something new in Sunrise. I had never organized an action before joining the actions team and then becoming a leader of a campaign. All different experience levels are welcome, and more experienced members are always there to help you out. If you aren't quite interested in joining a hub yet, Sunrise National offers so many trainings and courses via Zoom taught by fellow movement builders. I personally have done many of those, and each one took me a step farther in my organizing. Those are also available for all experience levels, from the Green New Deal crash course to how to grow your hub and beyond. I would totally recommend personally attending one or more of these courses. They definitely laid the foundation for my work with Sunrise. And yeah, I wanted to give a few tips and tricks for organizing. And the way I thought about this when I was making this slide is what I would have told my past self when I began my organizing journey. If you do decide to get involved, some of this advice might help you, some might not. But the first one is keep pushing if you feel a little nervous or unsure at first. As cliche as it sounds, sticking with Sunrise was a little hard for me. It seems like everyone knows what they're doing, but when you really look closer, everyone is learning together. And really, all they want to do is help you learn and grow the movement. We cannot fight climate change without everyone's help, and you are very much a part of everyone. The second one is getting involved in different ways. As I have said, I've done a lot of trainings, but mostly because in the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of organizing that I could find very easily. But when I was finally able to start organizing in January with other people, I fell in love with Sunrise all over again. And it just made me so excited about organizing, making change in my community. And so if what you're doing doesn't feel quite right, try something new and you might like it a lot more. The third one is don't be afraid to ask for help. This sort of goes hand in hand with number one in that everyone wants to help you, but everyone involved with Sunrise really just wants to grow the movement. Hubs have very strong leaders who can mentor you, and even if it isn't an official program, Sunrise is filled with friendly faces who would be happy to answer any questions, help plan an action, or just chat if you're feeling a little stressed out. I'm also more than happy to be a resource for any of you if you do join us. And then the last one, which I think is very important, is you can take a step back, which is something I definitely wish I told myself a little bit ago. Sunrise, depending on how much you invest in it, it can become a good amount of work, although there's certainly no pressure to lead a campaign like I'm doing or become a team lead. Everyone has boundaries, and taking a break if you feel overwhelmed is more than okay. We are all in this fight for the long term, so if you need to take a week-long or month-long break to come back as a stronger organizer later, everyone will 110% support you. And it's important to not burn yourself out because you are afraid of pausing your work. And then some specific projects. To provide examples, here are some of the projects that I am aware that are in progress in Sunrise. I personally have been devoting most of my energy to the campaign I've been mentioning, which is basically a series of actions to create public support for good jobs for all and emphasize how job inequality plays into the climate crisis. Boston has another campaign going on that is fighting against fossil fuel infrastructure. Many local hubs work on canvassing for local elections, which is an ongoing process, and it kind of depends where your local elections are at. And although I'm assuming not many of us, if any, are near the Gulf Coast, I did want to give a shout out to the Southern hubs that are marching 400 miles from New Orleans to Houston to demonstrate the urgency of the climate crisis, call on politicians to take action, and connect with community members along the way. They have a really cool Instagram called Generation on Fire that I really recommend following. It's amazing to see them walk all that way. And then, yeah, you can go to the next one. I wanted to put in some FAQs to sort of get the Q&A going. So who is supposed to be in this movement? This is a great question and one that Sunrise gets quite a lot. If you're at this talk, it is hopefully because you or someone you know is a young person, which Sunrise defines as under 35, and you're passionate about climate justice. Those are really the only qualifications. And as I said earlier, we need all hands on deck if we are able to make this movement as powerful as possible and create real change. So grab your friends, families, neighbors, and anyone else who fits the criteria to join us. And then my roommate suggested this one. What if I know absolutely nothing? And the answer to that one is everyone starts somewhere. I mean, I did not know about this probably like 3 years ago. As long as you have acknowledged the climate crisis is real and an ever-growing threat to our society, you are on the right track. A few training sessions or hub meetings and you are ready to go, but this work is a perpetual state of education. I learn new things at every meeting and every action that I go to. And then what level of commitment do I need to have? And the answer to that one is it really does depend on the person, what you have the capacity for and what you're looking to do. If you're in school, make sure to keep that in mind. You can go to one team meeting a week, or you can work towards a higher leadership role with tons of commitment. Remember what I said about taking a step back though, and don't burn yourself out. And yeah, that is pretty much what I've gathered for us today. So thank you for coming. And I really do hope that this has inspired you to take action, or maybe text a friend about this talk for a fight for a just, livable future for everyone. I would also be happy to answer any questions now, but if some come up later, you can email me. I can put my email in the chat in a little bit. And yeah, I'd love to help mentor you if you need anything. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Lucy. That's great. I offered to kind of help moderate the discussion a little bit, and so if people have questions they want to say, either unmute yourself or write it into the chat. And I kind of had a couple of questions. Lucy, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I have some questions that I could ask as well. But so somebody is asking, what would you say to someone who is on the fence about joining Sunrise for some reason, or for whatever reason?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it does depend on the reason. So if you're comfortable sharing the reason, that would probably help me answer that question. But I think you need to do a little self-reflection onto what that reason is. If you aren't sure, for example, you know enough, that really shouldn't be a barrier. If you feel like you already have a lot on your plate, then definitely do not add more to your plate, and wait until you're sort of maybe in summer vacation or are out of college or something like that, because unfortunately the climate crisis is not going away. So while we'd love to have you now, do not sweat it if it takes a little bit for you to get involved. And yeah, and then Virginia says, what has been your favorite moment so far? Ooh, there have been many. I mean, sentimentally, I love the action team at Boston, and we always have really cute events. I've actually made a ton of real life friends from there, and some of them come to visit me at school since I can't leave. But organizing wise, I really loved the action I put on at CA with the march down to Old North Bridge. I was in the newspaper for the first time, and that was really cool. And I got interviewed by a real life reporter, and it was just wow, I'm actually making a change, and that was amazing.
Fantastic. Other sub questions? I have a couple I can always throw at you too. So does anybody else have questions they want to ask? Let me see if people are coming in. I'm going to ask one, and if others want to think of other questions, that's great. I wanted to know a little bit about the typical person in Sunrise. Are they typically? Oh yeah, Kayla has one too. Are they typically college, high school? Do you have some 35-year-old kind of active members? What's Sunrise Boston like, for instance?
Yeah, definitely. It does depend on the hub. So more local hubs, I mean, you can have middle schoolers. I've been on national networking calls where I've met 13-year-olds who are doing this, and I'm just so awed by them and how committed they are to this already. And it's really cool to see. 35 and older, this is not exactly what you're asking, but the Sunrise website does have resources. So I see some faces who may or may not be over 35. But there are definitely ways to help support the youth in this movement and plug in that way.
That was actually my second question, was ways that Sunrise has connected to older generations, maybe other activist organizations. Have they done coalition work, or do they want donations, or what are ways that we, the older folks can help?
Yeah, Sunrise is always looking for donations, as many nonprofit organizations are. I've actually haven't been here enough to see too much coalition building, but I know that Sunrise Boston is part of the Mass Renews Coalition, which it goes hand in hand with the campaign that I'm working on right now. Mass Renews has written 2 bills fighting for housing and food justice in Boston, which is really cool. And we definitely have connections with other youth-led organizations. And I know a lot of our members intersect with both. One of my very good friends on the comms team, for example, is one of the leaders of Asian Coalition Mass, and they put on a huge rally for Asian youth, which was incredible to see. And Sunrise has a lot of really good relationships with 350 Mass and things like that.
Yeah, if those of you on the call don't know about 350 Mass, they're another really great climate organization that works throughout the country, 350 national, and then they have each state has their own chapter. There's also a Western Mass 350. Kayla asks, what has it been like organizing in COVID?
Yeah, that is a good one. So as I said, I sort of started in my freshman year, which was way before COVID, but that wasn't very large scale. And at first it was really hard because I was looking for ways to get more involved, and literally all I could find was these Zoom trainings. And it was disappointing because I was like, oh, like I know I'm stuck at home, but I want to be out helping these people. And it's been challenging, but I mean, we are still in COVID now, and every action we plan, we really keep in mind like mask mandates, and there's still like protests going on, but we're making sure everyone is being really safe with that. But it's been hard also, like in a like human connection way. Like I have never met most of the people I'm organizing with face to face, which is crazy to think about considering I spend like 12 hours a week with them on Zoom. um, but yeah, it's difficult, and I'm really looking forward to organizing post COVID slash with developing situation and see how that's like.
Awesome. Other people have questions for Lucy? I have about
Yeah,
5 more.
I have a few in my direct messages.
Oh, you do? Oh,
So,
good. Perfect.
yes. One of them was what motivates you to keep working with Sunrise, which is a great one. I think there's a lot that plays into that. Sunrise really stresses the importance of a personal narrative, but I don't personally feel like I had an aha moment, if that makes sense. Sort of on a more like emotional standpoint, I remember like as a kid being so excited for the jobs I would get to have, and also to have kids of my own. And I, at this moment in time, am very worried for the future, and I don't really want to bring life into this world if it is doomed for collapse, which is very dark, of course. But I'm fighting for both my generation and generations to come after. And I just keep thinking about like when my parents would read me bedtime stories and how much I would love to do that for other people, and my future children. And yes, and my yeah. The next one is, what moment did you realize Sunrise was for you? That's a good one. Yeah, so I really found them through a CA alumni. So shout out to Audrey Lynn, who a few of you know. Um, but I think they do a really good job with social media presence. And as a part of Gen Z, we are always on our phones. So I feel like I was seeing all these incredible actions. I remember the Pelosi sit-in in 2018 was publicized so well. And that moment alone has brought like thousands of people into this movement. And just seeing like Audrey, for example, someone who is very much not that much older than me, like grow into this movement and see all the change that she was making. I mean, she helped organize a protest in Boston that was like 10,000 people, and that was insane to see. And that was totally like, wow, Sunrise is really helping, and like really a mass movement that I can be part of. And then another one is what
Can you
are
just
some
tell
of your...
the story about that Pelosi sit-in just for a second? Because some people might not have heard of it.
Oh yeah, well, I was not there. I'm sad to say that was well before I actually knew what Sunrise was. And it was in 2018, but a bunch, like a lot of people went down and sat in Nancy Pelosi's office and were like, sign up to the Green New Deal, like, why aren't you supporting this? Like, etc. like that. And a lot of the powerful videos that I saw were like really young children, like 7-year-olds being like, fight for me, like help us, we are all in danger, like why are you not helping us with this? And yeah, as I said, it was just publicized so well. You can find incredible pictures of the action and just the sheer like people power that you could see. Like there were so many people lining the walls, holding signs, like talking and sharing stories, and it was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, and so yeah, sorry. The question was, what are some of your favorite things about working with Sunrise Boston? I really love just the community, which isn't necessarily an organizing exclusive thing, but they're all so willing and able to like help at any given moment. Like if I need to take a day off and like not check Slack, then I can do that, and everyone will be like, oh, like, are you okay? Do you want to just like chat? And just the community is incredible, and I really have learned so much from these people. and I know that I will continue to learn from them. But Sunrise really emphasizes like true vulnerable emotional connection. And I've heard so many amazing stories from people about why they're fighting. And that's another thing what motivates me to keep working, is hearing other people and their stake in the movement. And then also the cool things like, I don't know, seeing actions actually happen is really awesome to see. And like seeing a banner drop that looks incredible and has great photos, having people ask me about it because they saw something I posted on social media, and just like watching people like sort of have a click in their head, like, oh, this is something we need to be fighting for. Because I feel like it's important to acknowledge that, especially at CA, like we are all incredibly privileged and we are not the ones who are going to see the impact of the climate movement first. It's the low income communities, the frontline communities who are like on the coasts that are already seeing their homes being taken away from them. So even though that's not right in our face, like we are still fighting for these people. And that's so important to remember. Definitely. So yeah, seeing that change. And then Ben, I know you have questions, but there's one more in my direct messages, which is, what are some of the things you've accomplished at Sunrise? Did I read that one already?
No.
What are some of okay, what are some of the things you've accomplished at Sunrise that you're most proud of? I mentioned that after the CA action marching down Old North Bridge that I was interviewed by the press. I thought that was really, really cool, which I don't know, it was just like the Concord local newspaper, but I was like, wow, like I was interviewed by the newspaper, no big deal, which was amazing. And even though I've been sort of stuck at CA for a little bit, I've helped to plan actions from afar since I can't actually go into Boston and execute them. So as I have mentioned, this campaign, like we had an action where we did a banner drop across a bridge in Boston, and there were some really cool photos out of that. I've learned more about like sort of social media outreach and like graphic design, though very loosely. I've designed like one flyer and I couldn't figure out how to do a line on it, and my roommate had to help me, which was pretty embarrassing. But I've definitely learned some like technical, just like real world like organization skills, which has been amazing.
It's really cool to see that the newspaper is looking at actions like that, because one of the best things about any sort of action is getting the word out to people. And so the action itself is one thing, and the people who were there and happened to be at the bridge that day saw it, but the article then went to all over the place, and lots of people got to see that these kids care about climate action, which I thought was so cool as well. I was going to ask you this, Lucy, and I haven't, you didn't know I was going to ask you this, but when you and I were talking about this before, I said, you're going to get, I went through some potentially really hard questions you're going to get. And one of them would be, wait, we have Biden, there's no more kind of climate denial in the White House. Like we're all set now, and we're back in the Paris Climate Agreement. Everything's fine, right? And you looked at me and you're like, not even remotely. We still have so much work to do. And I just thought I should give you a chance to say more about that, if you wouldn't mind. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I personally felt such a huge wave of relief when Biden was elected, because even though he's not perfect, at least he does acknowledge that climate change is real. And one of my friends who's on this call, Virginia, I don't know if she was there for that exact moment, but I was at Schwanke, which is a semester away program, when it was announced, and I was in the woods making like garlic knots or something, and I just started like weeping with relief, and she's laughing because she probably remembers hearing about that. But yeah, it feels great. It feels great to have someone who we know is on our side, allegedly, and who does make climate change a priority for the most part. I will say I'm not educated so much on his policies, so I'm speaking from like personal experience and what I think we can accomplish, but I've not memorized his propositions, so please keep that in mind. I think it's a good start, definitely, but I think there's so much more potential and so much more important like acknowledging of the situation that we're in and who it's impacting, because I talked about it, like low income frontline communities are being impacted right now, and they will continue to be impacted. And I feel like Biden should work on centering Indigenous voices, and he should work on like addressing like the hurricanes that are tearing these communities apart already, and working on a good jobs guarantee, because he's proposed things, but I know that we can do more. We've seen it happen. We have the ideas legislation that AOC and Ed Markey have written out. like there's just so much more that we can do and so much more that needs to be focused on. Like acknowledging that climate change is real is a really important first step. But yeah, I believe there's a lot more potential in what we're doing.
Yeah, and I know Sunrise was working very hard to support Bernie's campaign because he was more of a friend of the Green New Deal and AOC and stuff. So we'll hopefully see Biden's administration work with AOC and some of the Green New Deal supporters. That's great. Those were the questions that I had, and we are at 4:45. We gave ourselves till 5 if we need it, but we don't need to stay for the whole time. I wanted to check, like, give people a chance. Well, in the world of teaching, we call this, we give this little moment of silence to see if anybody has any final questions. It's called wait time as a teacher. So I'm going to shut up for a second and see if anybody wants to throw one more question at us. Totally optional. And wait time is usually about 10 seconds. And okay, I think we've given people a chance to put in questions. Do you have any final thoughts you want to add, Lucy? And then maybe we'll give Brad a chance to kind of close things out for ConcordCAN.
Yeah, of course. Well, once again, I will say it. Thank you all so much for coming out. I know it's really, although very hot, still pretty nice outside. So thank you for spending time on Zoom with us. I know we have a lot of that already, but it's great that you're all here. I shared my email in the chat. I can share it again also. But I would love to continue this conversation because it is an ongoing process, of course. And I know a lot of you, which is great. Thank you. If you have friends who go to other schools, for example, or just like a sibling who might be interested, just keep talking about it because we need to keep building this movement, definitely.
Sure. Yeah, definitely get the word out to other young folks through schools, through church groups, through any sort of youth groups that you can find. We are really trying to connect to other schools in this area, all throughout the greater Boston area. I think that would be really exciting. There's tons of other teachers like me who really care about this, and I'm connecting with them, but we want to really infuse this movement with youth as well. Brad, do you want to say anything final about the ConcordCAN stuff?
Sure. Well, I just want to say I'm so pleased and moved by what Lucy said, and impressed. And I think working in this movement probably gives you a lot of self-confidence and skills you don't have. And I think it's just a great thing to get involved with. The summer is probably a really good time to do that.
Definitely. Especially with COVID trickling out, we'll have some in-person actions, which is really exciting.
We want to stay connected, and we want to wish you the best and help you out in any way we can. So thank you. I mean, just round of applause. And everybody that's on the call, I hope you end up, your semesters well and energized to do some good.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll post the link to the recording somewhere so you can pass it around to other folks. And thank you so much, Lucy and Brad and everybody at ConcordCAN and Sunrise. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Soon.